Hey everybody, pumped and excited. I'm David Burns. I'm going to answer your questions either from my YouTube channel or questions left over from my live stream last night. I'm going to be with you. How are you doing today? And I got a lot of good questions. So remember, when I answer questions from the green chair Friday, it means that it's raw and unedited straight through. Just makes it easier for me not to have to do any fancy editing. But today I want to start off with a question that might be good for all of you. All of these questions, by the way, if you're not dealing with what this beekeeper is asking, you will one day deal with this. So all of this information that I'll be sharing today, even though it may not be something you're dealing with right now, probably going to be something you deal with in your future. So pay close attention. And if I was a new beekeeper, 1 to 5 year beekeeper, I would make some kind of a spreadsheet of all of these questions and answers, and I would keep them. And if I had that same scenario happen to me in the future, I would go back and pull up that spreadsheet, put a search word in, boom, I have an answer. Just what I would do. All right. Now, Cindy, I want to start with Cindy's question. She says, I'm not as strong as I used to be. What are your thoughts on going to all medium boxes? Now, to give you an idea, I don't have any near me, but deep boxes are 9 5/8 from the top to the bottom outside measurement. And then the medium supers are 6 5/8. So you're about 3 inches shorter. Well, the frames are going to be 3 inches shorter, which means that if it's a honey frame or brood or whatever, you're going to have basically less weight, right? I mean, it's a tiny bit smaller footprint, but only as it stacks up, not sideways. All of them are going to be 16 1/4 wide. So yeah, Cindy, it is going to be a little bit lighter. If you were able to cut off 3 inches, like say of the bottom 3 inches of all your honey supers, that's going to make it lighter to lift. And so there are many people who only use medium boxes. I have a hive out in the bee apiary, the YouTube studio apiary, and it is made up of 5 or 6 medium boxes. So yeah, it's lighter. But to be honest with you, I'm going to just say, Cindy, when you have a honey super that's filled with 10 frames, I think I weighed it last summer. You can watch that video, but wasn't it like 40, 50 pounds? It's still heavy. And it's no good way to lift it. I mean, you got the little handle holds, so you got to be strong. I get it. Another option for you might be, you didn't mention that, did you? Cindy, it might be wise to drop to an 8-frame hive and use all medium 8-frame boxes. Now you're getting rid of 2 frames out of each box, and that, I think that's going to reduce it by 10 or 15 pounds a box on a honey super. I think that's about right, 6 or 7 pounds a frame. So you're going to lighten the load up. Also, Cindy, another way to handle it is don't ever try to lift all 10 frames up at one time or all 8 frames. I've made videos where I demonstrate if you have to remove a honey super and you have a sore back or you're not strong, what you can do is just take frames out one at a time and move them into another box that's already on like for me, on my golf cart or something. And then I can drive it back. And when I get back to harvest them, I take them into the harvest room one at a time. I mean, you have to be creative like that and find out, how do I reduce the weight? So hopefully that will help you, give you some options, but that is a very good question. Yeah. All right, let's get into some more questions. How about, hello from Searcy, Arkansas. How is your horizontal hive doing? Fingers crossed. It has not survived a winter yet. And well, I've only had one winter with it. So this will be their second winter. My impression of horizontal hives aren't that great because I feel like bees need to move up, more vertically like this. When they're horizontal in the wintertime, they have to come all the way out of a frame to move. Not so much when they're vertical, they can move straight up because the frames allow them to move as a cluster upward or downward. The frames aren't in the way. But if you have frames like this and the bees need to move sideways, they have to go below and they may not be able to do that. So fingers crossed, we'll see how it goes this year. And it's harder for me to feed my horizontal Langstroth hives. So not really much of an update there. But yeah, thanks for asking, Robert. Searcy, Arkansas. I've been in that area quite a bit. Yep. All right, Brian Hill. Hey, Brian. First year bee, can you explain what a Pol-line colony is? And do you have thoughts on them? Yeah, a Pol-line colony, nice use of the word there. You didn't say Pol-line hive. Again, a hive is a woodenware, the box without any bees in it. A colony is the bees that's in a hive. Well, Pol-line, let's see if I get all this straight. You kind of caught me off guard here. Pol-line is it's a type of honeybee. It has its name because I believe it's a USDA type of VSH queen that was raised for commercial beekeepers many years ago. And so in other words, it's a breed that is supposed to be more Varroa sensitive, hygienic. And so to be honest with you, I assume it's still in production, if you want to call it that. I've used them before. I think I got my hands on a queen one time and used them years ago. So it's just a VSH queen. And so I'm giving you my honest opinion about this. It's nothing new. You've heard me say this before, but I've used so many of the VSH types of queens. And that's not the best way to word that for all types of queens that we use that are hopefully more Varroa resistant. But there are no breeds of bees out there that are 100% Varroa mite resistant. They're not out there. Some do better, 10, 20%, and any percent is great, right? But the reason that nothing has blown my socks off yet, I've tried to do it, back when we were using liquid nitrogen to do the tests, and I know there's odor tests that you can use now, but I tried to do it for years and years, and I used other people's stock to evaluate them years ago. This is not a new thing. This has been going on for a very long time, many decades. So the problem with it is it's hard to hold that line tight. If you do get that queen that shows more VSH mite resistance capabilities, then what happens is maybe that queen gets superseded and you lose her. And now, I guess the stock gets diluted down because you're going to lose your queen. They're going to raise a new queen. Sure, it's going to be 50% of what the stock was, but 50% isn't 100%. So my take on it also is it's not blowing my socks off because, everybody's working hard to develop a new mite treatment. And it doesn't show as much promise right now as treatments do. You know what I mean? To be fair, nobody in the whole bee industry is saying, oh my gosh, this one queen, this one type of, they did it. This queen has genetics that will prevent mites in a hive. It's just not there. And so until it gets better, I'm having to fight mites the traditional methods with integrated pest management. So we're not there. That's my take on it. I'm not saying good or bad about Pol-line. I think it's probably one that the USDA has put a lot of work into, and if it's still out there, I'm sure it is. It may show more resistance to the reproductive life of the mites in the hive. But again, it can't be 100%. Even chemicals or treatments that we use aren't 100%, right? If you look at the efficacy of oxalic acid, the efficacy of Veroxan, all the treatments that we use, Apigar and Apilife, if you look at Formic Pro, all of those, the efficacy sometimes is between 80 and 90 something. Nothing's 100%, which is scary because if you try to annihilate all of the mites in your hive, and let's say it has a 93% efficacy, 7% live, that's where we get into problems because the 7% of mites that made it through the treatment, they're going to reproduce, and will they be a little stronger against the treatment? These things are alarming, aren't they? If you stop and think about that. All right. So that's my answer on the Pol-line. Dave Stradamus. Oh, will the channel hit 200,000 in 2025? That's 200,000 subscribers. Oh, that's interesting, Henry. Thanks for rooting for me. I doubt it. I usually gain about 25,000 subscribers a year. And I think I gained 26,000 subscribers this year. Thank you. And thank you for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. But this year I'm at, 157 right now. So it'd be shy. It might take me 2 years at 200,000, unless those of you watching, more than half of you watch that aren't subscribed. But all I can do is beg and plead. So yeah, please subscribe. We'll see, Henry, if we reach that. That'd be great. All right. Dave, what do you feel about, I just mentioned this. What do you feel about Veroxan? I obtained, Veroxan came out last summer late, and I got my hands on them. I didn't get to start playing with them until almost fall. And boy, I was so disappointed. I did not get a chance to really use them before I just ran out of time and fall hit, and I couldn't do, because they have to stay in the hive about 56 days, I believe, 52, 56 days. So I just didn't have a good chance to evaluate it. And I guess I'm going to say that I did try them in 3 hives. I did get them out before it got cold, but it wasn't the right time of the year. I do know this though, in my experience so far, is that this is not a blast kill. I want to make that clear. This is something I think that it's good to use to keep mite levels down instead of letting them grow up to large numbers. But I don't think it's a good, and I could be wrong, but right now it doesn't appear to me it'd be a good product if your hive is just overtaken by mites and you put this in there. I think it would help tremendously, but I think it would be better to use Veroxan. Personally, I would use it if I started seeing my numbers get up above 3%. I wanted to keep it down. If I saw my levels at 18% mites and I put Veroxan in there, the 56 days, I'd rather put something in there that's going to blast the mites. And for me, I like blasting them with Forming Pro because it kills below the cap cells, so you're just annihilating all the mites. With big numbers, it's better to have a flash kill. So I got a lot of Veroxan. I think they're not going to expire. I think I'll be able to use them all again, the ones I haven't used yet, next spring and summer. So that'd be a better test for me to see how they go. Okay, started over this year with 3 colonies. Still have 3, woohoo! Want to expand in 2025, interested in using Apiam bottom boards for 10 frame Langstroth woodenware here in Tennessee. What's your thoughts? I do have some Apiam hives. I haven't tried to use the traditional bottom board on them. And right now, I think I can't really speak to that. I'd have to go out and look. I'd have to go out and try it. Some of the more specific hives, they are more proprietary, like with the handles and things and how they lock together. And so isn't the Apiam bottom board built into the bottom deep, or is that one of the other hives I have? One of the hives I have out there, the bottom board is part of the base, the bottom deep. That may not be Apiam, but one of them is. So you would just have to check into that. I don't have an answer right off the top of my head. I've got so many different types of hives out there. I have the Enel hive that's a plastic, similar to Apiam. Then I have another plastic hive, and I can't remember the name of it. I get them all confused. So yeah, I think Apiam has some good points to it. I really do. And I like the gentleman that runs the company, or kind of their spokesman that I see at conferences in the vendor section and all. What is his name? Korhan. Yeah, I think it's Korhan. And yeah, so do your research and find out if that's going to work for you. EL, I think I need to combine 2 now weak colonies, weaker post-formic. Oh, that's too bad. Both queens cut way back on laying. What's the best way to combine them? 1 deep, 1 medium, 1 hive. Hate to kill the queen, though her laying is poor. You never know if the queen's laying poor is because of it's a bad queen, or if the colony is weakened so much that they can't really support what the queen is doing. They need to feed her well for her to lay well. And many times the colony can get so weak that what they'll do, they'll be protein deprived, and they will eat the eggs that the queen is laying for protein. So there's a lot that could be going on there. But anyway, if your queen is not laying well, or the hive is low in population, and you want to combine them, I'm not sure where you live, but right now, it's like I can't work my bees. It's too cold. But let's say it's the middle of summer and you want to combine your hives, and you had a deep, a medium hive. Yeah, you can combine them with the newspaper trick. That works really well. And I would try to combine 1 hive that's the weakest with the other hive and put the weakest hive on top above the newspaper, a couple of slits in the newspaper. Yeah. All right. Is it worth to use propolis traps? Propolis. Is it worth it? Depends on what you're going to need your propolis for. If you're wanting to sell it and you found a buyer, yeah, it'd be worth it because you could probably make a little more money to support your habit of beekeeping, your addiction to beekeeping. And so, yeah, you could sell your propolis to some organization. Sometimes there's medical places that buy it. Sometimes there's cosmetic places. I mean, there's places to sell it. Don't ask me where. I don't know where to direct you to who would buy it from you. You have to do your own research on that. But is it worth it? It could be. Now, if you're using it for your own good, like I have collected a lot of propolis that I use to coat the inside of my hives with. I use it in queen rearing, maybe to make things stickier sometimes if I'm putting my queen cup bars and the frames and all. I usually use wax, but you know, propolis can be handy in the beekeeping, kind of like the parts and pieces of beekeeping. You can use propolis here and there. There's a lot of uses for it outside the hive, for your personal use too. So it could be worth it. I have used propolis traps, and I made a video on how to use a propolis trap. The secret to it is to put it on the top of your hive, kind of after the honey flow, and crack the top of the hive a little bit where light gets in there. And then the bees will try to propolize the trap more. And then you can freeze the trap. Once it's frozen, you can twist it and all the propolis drops out and you can collect it. It does work out pretty good. You should play with it first. See if you like doing it. And then if you do, try to find a buyer, or maybe you need it for yourself. Chris says there's a lot of cherry orchards where I live. I would love to put the bees out during the bloom. Should I be worried about sprays? And the answer to that, Chris, absolutely. Always be worried about sprays, because sprays are there to kill insects from getting on the cherries, the apples, whatever. And so anytime sprays are being sprayed on fruit trees, it's never a good thing for honeybees. So you'll have to coordinate that with the orchard folks to see if they can coordinate a time to spray and make sure the spray dissipates before your bees are out there on it. Yeah, be concerned about that. If a hive dies during the winter from mites, could there be viruses present next year when I install the package? No. Never say never. Viruses don't live long outside their host. They can, don't get me wrong. You know, we all know about that from COVID. You know, if something is in a moist climate, sometimes a particular type of surface, a virus can live 24 hours or something like that. Don't quote me, I'm not a doctor, but it can survive a little while. Viruses aren't really alive. I shouldn't say live and die, but you know what I mean. So they can be there and be passed around, but in a beehive, once the bees die, and that's kind of the host is gone, if there's a significant time, I would say days, weeks, and certainly months, the viruses won't be present. No, they're different. They're different than a bacteria that has spores, for example, like American foul brood spores. On the other hand, the bees can die, and it doesn't matter. The spores are still in there, and the vegetative state of those spores can rear its ugly head 40 years later when you put bees in it, and maybe 80 years later now. We've been monitoring that. Okay, yeah, so you won't have to worry about that if you go through winter like that. Good question, though. I have 2 1/4-inch tube entrances. Should I remove them in the winter so the bees can clean the hive of dead bees? Not a lot of information what you mean by that. So you have 2 1/4-inch tube entrances. Okay, so your bees are going in and out of these tiny little straws. That's interesting. Wow, single file, everybody, line up. We're exiting today. I would love to see that. I'm not laughing at you, I'm laughing with you. The concept of seeing these tubes for entrances is interesting. I know that, I remember the University of Georgia did studies on using tubes like this years and years ago, decades ago maybe, but they were trying to control small hive beetle from coming into a hive, maybe using a smaller tube like that, and I don't think it made any difference. But anyway, yeah, it's going to be tougher to drag out dead bees out of those tubes, a 1/4-inch. That's about the size of a pencil, a hair bit bigger. Yeah, you might want to open that up a little bit bigger. Yep. Tracy, oh no, I just answered that, right? No, I didn't. Will a mite treatment rid all parasites out of the hive? A good question, Tracy, and no, it doesn't. Now, you know, we look at trachea mites. Used to be a big deal. Trachea are tiny little mites that get into the spiracle or the breathing tubes of honeybees, you know, along the side of the bees, and then they get in the trachea tube of the bees, and they actually will cause the bees to become sick and die. So our mite treatments for the varroa mites usually has a big killing power, some of the treatments on the trachea mites too. But on the other hand, and this is a good question, you know, I haven't seen like Formic Pro. I know this for a fact. I put Formic Pro on some of my hives to cut down the varroa mite levels. And yet I see the other pests known as small hive beetle playing games on the pads, up there sitting around drinking lemonade, loving the pads. So it didn't seem to me that the Formic Pro had any killing power on the other pest of small hive beetle. So no, not all of the mite treatments are going to kill other pests, for example. So that's going to be an issue you'll have to deal with too. Yeah. And remember, in beekeeping and in every walk of life, the treatment has to have the pests on the label to be legal. So if you're trying to get rid of the Varroa destructor, it needs to say that's what it's made for. If you're trying to get rid of small hive beetle, it needs to say that's what it's made for. So we don't really have a good treatment for small hive beetle. We do more trapping than anything. Okay, how do bees remove cut-through newspaper if they only have a proboscis? Well, that's true. Bees do have mandibles, little pretty hard little chewing things at their mouth, and they can definitely, they use it for wax manipulation and other things. But yeah, I said in the live stream that bees don't have teeth where like we chew steak and meat. Bees don't have that kind of chewing power like that, but they can tear and rip and squeeze and things with their mandibles. And that's how they rip up newspaper or get stuff, carry stuff out of the hive. I've actually seen bees that had an egg on their little mandibles, and I just can't believe they're that coordinated to do that. Eggs are so small. Right. All right, David, can you combine 2 hives with 2 queens, separated by queen excluders on top of the other? Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, this is a common, this is a good question, common question, but there's an issue that I want to explain here. And I think you're meaning, if you have a hive here with a queen, can you take another hive with a queen and put them together with a queen excluder in between them? And the answer is no, let's don't do that. Here's why. Because a queen excluder is pretty thin, and so is screen. A single layer of 1/8" hardware cloth is what we beekeepers use as a screen. And so what happens is bees or the queens can pull a queen close to the queen excluder. You know, they will actually, how do I say this? They will actually touch or get close enough where they can sting through the queen excluder, or they can tear the queen, her leg off and her wings off, and they can grab her from the other side. And they can sting through a screen or one single layer of queen excluder. You could do it if you were, that's why I often say that beekeepers need to be really resourceful, because I've made the item that you want, and that can be a double screen board, and there's a space between the 2 layers of screen that bees can't go through, and they can't touch each other through the screen. That's going to be helpful. The other thing is to do that with 2 queen excluders. Usually if you put 2 queen excluders together, the metal ones that have the wood around them, that will allow enough space. Probably not the plastic ones, but you can build a spacer and put a plastic queen excluder on one side, flip it over, and whatever your spacer can be, an inch or something, that would work. Yeah, I'm glad I answered that. That can be kind of devastating if you think you're separating them and you're not. Hi, David. I live in Eastern Washington. I put sugar brick on top of the frames in my 3 hives. Should I put in a screen to hold the sugar above the bees with bee space to maintain mantle cluster temperature? You could. You know, I always say I don't hold all the answers to beekeeping, and I really do come alongside beekeepers and try to help you accomplish what you want to do and the way that you want to do it. Right? I'm not going to be the guy that's going to say, only use this type of hive, only use this type of feeder, only use this type of mite treatment. You're not going to get that out of me, because there's so many ways it works, and it works good for different people. So I try to help you succeed at how you want to do it. I'll stop you, like the question about, will one queen excluder work? I'll say, no, they can kill each other. I'll tell you that. But in this case, you could try putting a screen on there. There are people that do put a screen to hold candy up off of frames and all, and let the bees eat it through a screen. However, I've always seen it to be a 1/4" screen. Well, I mean 1/8" hardware, 1/4" hardware cloth. Bees can go through the gaps in the screen. You don't want to use 1/8" hardware cloth. It's going to be too much of a small area for bees to really gain access to that sugar. But you could use it that way. Is it necessary? No, it's not. I've found in my studies that, my backyard study, is that when I put candy above the bees, I actually made videos of bees drilling through it and actually forcing it down so it falls more onto the cluster, so the cluster can consume it. Not all the bees have to go up and eat it. They're just dropping it down onto more bees to eat the sugar. So you could try it. You could come up with your own little study there and see if that works out well for you. Oh, wow, that's a good list of questions that you guys had. Thanks for all the questions. I love answering your questions. I want you guys to know, I really appreciate you so much. Love making videos from the green chair, answering your questions. I'm here working for you. I work for you. I really do. I value your friendship, your loyalty to my channel. I value that you subscribe. I value that you have enough time to want to watch my videos, and I appreciate that. It helps me so much. My videos get more views. It always helps me tremendously, so thanks so much. Be sure and look through the description of all my videos. I have a lot of good information down there in the description. And remember, please subscribe. Now, I've got a great video for you guys to watch if you haven't watched it already. This video, I think, will be very helpful for those of you thinking about just starting out in beekeeping. Or if you started out, but you started before you knew very much, maybe this will kind of make you have an aha moment. But it's basically how to start beekeeping. I made it a few years ago, but how to start is still the same. So it's very popular on YouTube with, I think, over 2 million views now. But for those of you starting in the spring, gotta watch it. Here it is. Get started in beekeeping. I'll see you guys over there.